Every month on this channel, I make a video where I review an appliance that you guys have chosen. Now this month, the suggestion was something I'd not actually heard of until this point, which is a pie maker. I'd never used one either, but over the last week, I've been using one pretty much non-stop, and we are now total converts. So stick around and I'll show you how they work and what we made with ours. Now the idea behind pie makers is pretty simple. It's very much like a toasty maker, but for pies. And in the same way that a toasty maker will join the top and bottom slices of bread, this has also got crimping as part of the design to join the top and bottom of the pie. And like a toasty maker, the pie maker really just toasts what you put into it. So it crisps the outside beautifully and heats up the inside of the pie, but it won't actually cook the ingredients. So you can't use raw ingredients, you have to pre-make your pie filling. But do not let that put you off. It isn't extra work, because what the pie maker is absolutely brilliant at is transforming random leftovers which you've already cooked and making them into pies. So let me show you how I used it over the last week and why this has been one of the most useful things that I've added to my kitchen for a while. When you unpack your pie maker, there are three things in the box: the appliance itself, a cutter which you can use on both sides, and an instruction book. First thing you want to do is plug the pie maker in and run it for 10 minutes or so to burn off any new appliance smell. Ideally, do that at a time when you don't want to immediately use it straight afterwards, so that you can cook from cold the first time that you cook. Now that first time you do want to cook, you want to grease your pie maker a little bit with some oil and then let it preheat for 3 to 5 minutes. While it's warming, a red light will be lit, and when it's ready, both the red and green light will be lit. Now you can use any pastry that you want, but we started with just rolled puff pastry. If you've got a box like this, you can cut 2 tops and 2 bottoms from a 320 gram sheet. The first thing we did was a nice, safe and easy option of apple pie using shop-bought apple sauce. The pastry doesn't look very tidy when it goes into the mould, but please wait and see what it looks like at the end, because an amazing transformation does occur. Now the instructions for this pie maker said not to overfill the pie, and so I was a little bit cautious with the quantity of filling I put into this first pie, and as a result of that the lid sunk into the pie and it remained a little bit pale in the middle. But I still think that the end result 15 minutes later was pretty impressive for a first try. So next day I wanted to try out using some leftovers. We'd had fajitas the night before and I'd been left with some really unhelpful quantities of leftover salsa and chicken. So I combined those with some grated cheese and then added the mixture as filling to the second batch of puff pastry. Now I did fall into the trap again of underfilling this second pie, still being too cautious because I was concerned about the ingredients bursting out. So the centre of the lid was still a little bit underdone, but please bear with me, I do nail the lid by the end of this video. So I'm 2 pies in, I've got 3 to go. Just a quick message, if you're new to this channel, I make videos every week that help you choose and use your home appliances. If you'd like to see more like that, please do hit the subscribe and the notifications. And if you're finding this video helpful, a thumbs up is always appreciated. So for pie number 3, I'd run out of puff pastry, so I decided to make a batch of short crust. Now the recipe I use for that is in this cookery book, which also has the recipe that I use for sweet pastry and for chocolate chip cookies. I made the pastry in the Magimix and then let it rest in the fridge for 20 minutes. Now annoyingly, I had slightly too little left of that fajita mix for pie number 3. So I ended up raiding the fridge again, looking for something that I could bulk it out with, and I found some bacon, which I chucked into the air fryer, and then I added that to the mix because everything is better with bacon. Putting the pastry into the moulds this time, I used my tart tamper. Now I held out against getting one of these for years because I thought I didn't need a silly wooden thing to push my pastry into my moulds, but actually I use it a load. They're really worth having. You'll notice I actually put the pastry in slightly wonky for this pie, but it had no effect on the finished pie. If you do find you've got edges hanging over the mould, you can break them off when the pie is finished. I made sure I filled this pie up to the top with filling, and I got a really good cooked top. My daughter gave this pie 10 out of 10. So next it was time to cook something for me and my husband for lunch. So I went hunting in the freezer for random bags of leftover things to see if I could actually assemble something that would be good in a pie. I found a bag of raw sliced potatoes, some cooked chicken and frozen peas. I chucked all of those into a frying pan, added some leftover dip and put them into the pies. I also tried adding a little milk with a pastry brush on the top of these pies to see if the lids would be even more golden, and I think it did help a little bit. Both pies looked absolutely fantastic at the end. Now, as far as cleaning up the pie maker goes, just let it cool down and use a damp cloth to wipe it down. If you've got crumbs inside it, just tip those out onto the worktop as you go. So as you may have detected, we are now pie maker converts. They are absolutely brilliant machines. It's the best way of using up leftovers of the most random things. If you've got cold vegetables, bolognese sauce, chicken curry, all of that works in a pie, no matter how small the quantity. The appliance itself is very lightweight, it's pretty cheap, and it doesn't take up a lot of room in the cupboard. You will find that there are loads of options when it comes to pie makers. They come in lots of different sizes, so you can make single pies, 2 at a time like the Salter one does, or even 4 at a time. If I had to start being picky and find faults with it, I'd say that it's a shame it doesn't have a timer and it's not particularly fast cooking. Including preheating, it takes about 20 minutes. But because it's pretty slow and steady, it's also not going to suddenly burn your pies, which is quite nice. It's also really cheap to run. This model is 900 watts and it used 0.037 kilowatt hours of energy when I ran it empty from cold for 5 minutes, which would cost about a penny at today's electricity rates. Now, I don't have a figure for energy use while it's making pies, but as I'm going to be using this quite a bit, I will just add that to the description when I have that later on. Do let me know what you think in the comments. I think a lot of you have already got pie makers and I'm pretty late to the party. So if you're one of those people, please do share pie filling suggestions in the comments, particularly random things that you've managed to find in the freezer, stick in a pie and it's turned out amazing. In next week's video, I'm going to be looking at what you can cook in a tiny 2-litre air fryer and seeing if they really are any good for one-person households. Make sure you're subscribed if you want to see that.